Chronic spontaneous urticaria, or chronic hives with no known cause. It's so unpredictable. It's like playing pinball. Itchy, red bumps start on my arm, then my back. Sometimes my legs. Hives come out of nowhere. And it comes and goes. But I just found out about a treatment option at treatmyhives.com. Take that, chronic hives. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us for a special episode this week because as we lead up to the Premier League starting at the weekend, we thought, why not pick the brains of Leeds and Burnley fans and see if they're looking forward to this just as much as we are. So I'm joined by two fine gentlemen this afternoon to chat all about how the summer's gone. And first off, I'll introduce Joe Redmond from the Turfcast podcast. Hello, Joe.
Hello, how are you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for coming in. And we've also got Chris McMenemy with us from The Square Ball, which is a podcast and website. Chris is a writer for The Square Ball. How you doing, mate?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very good. McMenemy is a bad name round Sunderland, by the way, so you've already got off to a bad start with our lot.
Well,
because of Laurie McMenemy from back in the 80s. People still speak with venom when they talk about Laurie McMenemy. But you're all right. It's spelled slightly differently, so... Yes, he did have a son called Chris. Isn't he like a scout? Or he's got something to do with Southampton, I think.
Something
I've got a feeling.
Like
that, Yeah. Anyways, gents, like I said, we all got promoted together, which is still bizarre to me as a Sunderland fan that we're back in the Premier League. For you two, maybe not as strange, given that it's not been as long as it has for Sunderland fans since you were last in the Prem. But I'll start with you, Joe. The end of the season, Burnley with the most amazing defence that the EFL's ever seen, which still is quite staggering, really. The amount of goals that you guys conceded last season was unbelievable. I mean, what did you hit every target that you felt like you were going to hit last season when it came to getting out of the Championship?
At the start of the season, yeah. I did think we'd go back up, I'll be honest, but I didn't expect to see such a brilliant defensive record. Like, when you look at how we went up under Vincent Kompany and compare that to how we went up under Scott Parker, it's completely the opposite. Like, we just played teams off the park under Vincent Kompany. Like, we'd be so many times we'd be 3-0 up and like just take our foot off the throat, which was my only gripe from that season. So many times we went, like I said, 2-0 up or 3-0 up and then just took our foot off the gas. Whereas I would have liked us to have just keep the foot on the throat that season. We did it to Blackburn, we did it to Preston. So, Blackburn beat us 5-0 back in 2000. Obviously, it was a long time ago because Blackburn don't beat Burnley anymore. But I would have liked to have got revenge for that. But yeah, it's the complete opposite. Obviously, last season, we just defended incredibly and were decent up front. We didn't really pull up any trees up front, but we were half decent. But we went up because of our brilliant defensive record, obviously, and our brilliant goalkeeper as well. Obviously, the downside of that is we've lost two of the main people for that. Trafford being the main one as well, with that obviously going to Manchester City. So it's going to be interesting to see how we deal with that.
Yeah. And for Leeds, Chris, I mean, similarly, even without Burnley's defensive record, Leeds' defensive record last season was unbelievable too. But you also went up with a bit of style. Had, for me, some of the best football that I saw last season came from Leeds. So it must have been nice to get promoted, but do it in a manner in which you can hold your head high and go, we did pretty well last season.
Yeah, I feel like in some ways Leeds maybe didn't live up to their full potential at times last season. Like, there was a few games where, but like Joe was saying with Burnley, where Leeds kind of took the foot off the gas. Like, I would think back to the Plymouth game in November against Wayne Rooney's Plymouth, who were just an absolutely awful football team. Leeds were 3-0 up at half time without even breaking a sweat. Like, that could have been 9-0 on the day and nobody would have been annoyed. But yeah, like, the main thing was getting promoted, and then to win the title was just like the cherry on the cake, basically. I was always confident that we'd get promoted and that Leeds would win the league. Like, I think they were probably the best team in the league and had, let's be honest, spent a good bit of money and still had some decent Championship players or some decent bottom end Premier League players in the squad. So like the only thing at times that stopped us was our goalkeeper, which is the sort of polar opposite of Burnley. Basically, I think we were like
we know all about that at Sunderland.
Yeah, two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, Melier did us a big favour, didn't he, in that game at the stadium? Like, just one of the most bizarre goals that I've ever seen. It kind of defined his season, though, didn't it? Because he made a lot of high profile errors across the season where Leeds were like just there, that close to winning a game, or just that close to getting the points they needed, and then Melier would throw in a howler and stuff. So, I mean, it looks like you've gone out and signed his replacement already, though. So, I presume that was a big big feature of the summer. Find somebody who's capable of playing the Premier League between the sticks.
Yeah, I quite liked Carl Darlow when he came in, but he obviously isn't. He's not a Premier League level goalkeeper. I don't think he's a Premier League level backup. I would say definitely at the bottom end, but yeah, getting a goalkeeper was a bit of a priority. I really like Melier. I still like him. I think he'll leave Leeds and go on to do really well somewhere in Europe. But there comes a point where there's just almost no return, and like footballers can pretend that they're immune to it, but they definitely see what's being said about them online, and like you can even just hear it in the stadium. Like the last time was the Swansea game, which he got dropped. Like whenever he made those two howlers in that game, like you could just feel it in the stadium. It was almost the silence rather than the like people screaming at him. People just going, right, well, that's enough of that.
Joe, you heard Chris there talk about how he felt like Leeds were going to go on and win the league, and they did. Was it disappointing from a Burnley perspective that you didn't, or was the goal just get out of this league, get promoted? We want to get back to the Premier League by hook or by crook.
Yeah, the goal obviously at the start of the season is just to get out of the league. That's literally all. Even if we'd have gone up at Wembley, we're all sat here now in the same position. So now it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But to miss out on goal difference for the title, then yes, of course, especially on the last day of the season when I think, if I remember rightly, Leeds will lose it at one point as well. I might be wrong on that. But I seem to remember it like looking like it might happen, and I'm just like, there's no chance. Like people around me were getting excited, and I'm like, we're up anyway, so what does it matter? But then ultimately, obviously, Leeds came back. I think it was Plymouth, actually, weren't it? Plymouth away for Leeds. Yeah, it was. So, yeah, I never really felt like you'd lose there. Only Sheffield United lost there, I think, last season, which was quite funny, and was another reason why we're sat here now with a Sunderland fan rather than a Blades fan. But yeah, like like you said, it was get out of the division by hook or by crook, and not to go back to it as well, but we did it 2 years ago. Like we did that amazing season 2 years ago, and look at how awful we were the year after. Hopefully we're not going to be awful the year after again, but the last 2 times we've been in the Championship, apart from that last season, obviously, we've won the league. So it's not like it's something I've missed out on, and I think as a Burnley fan, I might never get to see that again. Like say if we lost in the FA Cup final in like 2-3 years, obviously it's wishful thinking, but just as an example, if we lost that, I'd be absolutely heartbroken. So like that, I might not ever get to see that as a Burnley fan. But yeah, the last 2 times have been in the Championship under Dyche and under Company. We did win it, so I'm not overly fussed. But yeah, at the start of the season, like I said, I did think we'd get out of it. And I think I had Leeds finishing first and Burnley second, actually, so I'll take that.
I would say this because I'm a Sunderland fan, but I just don't think there's the way we got promoted. I would swap that for any other. Like if you could pick a way to do it with last minute winners and like
we
you know
did
what I mean.
In 2009, like winning at Wembley is massive, and obviously doing it the way you did it. But for us, I think the thing I'd never swap is when we won the league at Ewood Park. Like that is just the stuff of dreams. It's like you winning the Championship at St James's and stuff. I wouldn't ever change that. But yeah, I think when we went up in 2009 at Wembley, and until the year we won it at Ewood, and if that was just a generic stadium win, then it probably would still be my favourite. But yeah, winning at Wembley is superb, and every football fan deserves to experience it at least once, apart from Blackburn fans, obviously.
Yeah, apart from Blackburn, Newcastle, and Man U, I guess. How's the summer gone, Chris? Because it's been interesting, kind of following There's been a lot of parallels with Sunderland and Leeds, particularly on social media. Because at the start of the window, we were getting linked to the same players. Sunderland signed a couple of players who'd been linked to Leeds, and Habib Diarra, Noah Siddiqui, who, by all accounts, were on Leeds' shortlist of players they might potentially want to sign and stuff. I've just seen as well today that Leeds apparently are signing Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I mean, how's the summer actually gone for Leeds? Has it been a success or not?
I think the reason, first of all, that Sunderland and Leeds have been linked with the same players is that both teams appear to be having that sort of data approach to things and picking out the players that they think are diamonds that are yet to be fully polished across Europe. Diarra and Siddiqui. Well, Diarra, I know Leeds made a bid for, but I think Sunderland came in with quite, was it 35 million or something euros in the end?
We broke our transfer record and paid 30 for him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see Leeds going out and doing that this summer because, and to be honest, I think that we might have signed him as well, but from watching Leeds and Milan and Dublin at the weekend, Anton Stack, the German midfielder we signed, he'll be playing for Borussia Dortmund or Bayern Munich in a couple of years. I'm happy enough with what we've done in the window so far. I still think more than a striker, I think we need a winger or a number 10 or just somebody to create those chances to link things between the midfield and the attack, because if you give Joel Peru chances, he'll score. And then I find the Dominic Calvert-Lewin thing a bit of a strange move. Just don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but you're talking about someone who's been injured quite a bit over the last 2 years, and he's on big wages at Everton, whether or not I can't imagine he's going to take a huge pay cut to go to Leeds. And it's just a bit of a risk. So I don't know about that one. Look here, if he stays fit, he'll probably score a handful of goals, or at least do the sort of hold up play that a team down the bottom needs. But it feels a bit of a strange move whenever Leeds seem to have got rid of Patrick Bamford, or wanting to get rid of Patrick Bamford, because he's on too high a wage and he's too injured too often and doesn't score enough goals.
Yeah, then you just go out and sign someone exactly like that. I've just read a tweet there from Zinni Boswell from Sky Sports, who said, deal for top target Rodrigo Muniz now very unlikely, and then said, Calvert-Lewin and Leeds are not each other's top choices, but both need each other right now. That's such a strange thing to say about signing a new player, isn't it? It's surely you're signing somebody because you think they can make a real difference. And I did see also Ben Jacobs from TalkSport said that Calvert-Lewin earlier in the window had turned Sunderland down. So, he's obviously been in talks with a bunch of Premier League clubs and will have had options on the table. I think a fit Dominic Calvert-Lewin is potentially a decent signing, but it's that if, isn't it? Apparently Everton wanted to give him a pay-as-you-play type contract because they just couldn't rely upon him to stay fit, and which is why he turned away. It's a strange...
Yeah, the pay-as-you-play thing, I've seen people mentioning that today with Calvert-Lewin trying to say, well, maybe he's on a pay-as-you-play. I can't think of a pay-as-you-play contract except for maybe Christian Vieri in the mid-2000s. It doesn't seem like it's a real thing. It does,
I know what you mean. Yeah,
maybe it is, but I can't imagine Calvert-Lewin is going to accept a pay-as-you-play deal at Leeds. I'm sure. If he stays fit, I'm sure he'll score a few goals and it'll be a good sign in the end. But it's a bit of a step down from Muniz in terms of potential. But
yeah,
Muniz, he's had his injury troubles in the last couple of years as well, and I was actually never really fussed on him. I didn't want to spend 40 million they're talking about for a striker who scored 8 goals in the Premier League last year. I can't think of a name off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are centre forwards out there who would fit the bill in Europe who are going to cost 25, 30 rather than 40 and probably produce the same level of quality.
Yeah, you mentioned Anton Stack there before, but who else would you pick out from that summer business who people should look at? I'm just looking at the list of names here. Lucas Perry from Lyon, Jaka Biol from Udinese. I presume they're the ones at the top of your list there.
Yeah, Biol looks like a real player. I would watch quite a bit of Italian football, and he was at Udinese the last couple of years, and just really solid, big centre half, very physical, very good in both boxes from set pieces. The sort of player that I think you need at that level. He's actually suspended for the first game of the season for a red card that carried over from Serie A. So I think a lot of England fans maybe might remember him from whenever Slovenia played England at the Euros last year, because he basically just bullied Harry Kane all night that night.
Right.
Yeah, he's got a bit of the Ivan Dragos about him. I quite like him. And the goalkeeper, I think the most exciting thing about the goalkeeper is that I feel he looks like he can throw the ball about 70 yards. He could just absolutely launch the thing, so that'll be good to see. But I'm really excited about the left back we signed from Lille, Gabriel Gudmundsson. A bit of an upgrade on Junior Firpo potentially, who didn't look great in the Premier League last time. But there's quite a few players who struggled in the Premier League, come down to the Championship, play well, and go back up to the Premier League and end up doing well.
I noticed you never mentioned Sean Longstaff there, by the way. We'll skip past him, I think.
I'm trying not to offend your listeners.
Yeah, we'll see how he does. I'm not a lot of my friends are Newcastle fans, and they never had him. But I don't know whether sometimes local boys get a different sort of a different treatment from some of the players you bring in, don't they? We see it with players we've got, so we'll see how he does, I guess. Moving on to you, Joe, slightly. Then how's your summer gone with Burnley? I know you've spent a bit of money. I looked, and Sunderland are the top spenders, but Burnley are just below. Spent quite a lot of money going into the new season. Are you happy with the business you've done?
To an extent, I feel like I worry about depth. I mentioned earlier, obviously, we lost James Trafford, we lost CJ Egan-Riley, who went to Marseille on a free.
Two big players last season.
The rocking our defence last season was Maxime Esteve. Yeah, they were. Don't get me wrong, especially Trafford. I think like Maxime Esteve was the reason why we were so good, and Trafford not far behind him. He made some brilliant saves at Watford away just before we scored towards the end. He was fantastic towards the end of the season. So he's going to be a big miss. But obviously, I'm going to have to mention an ex-Newcastle player here, so I do apologise for that. But I feel like we've done some okay business in bringing Dubravka in. He's got plenty of Premier League experience. I think he's going to do well for us. He has looked okay in pre-season, from what I've been told. I haven't really catched any pre-season games, to be honest with you. But it's the two Chelsea lads where this high expenditure comes from. So if you're looking at it, it's apparently around 40 million on somebody whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce it, the Leslie lad, and Armando Broja. Broja's a similar sort of bracket to Calvert-Lewin in the sense that he's been injured quite a lot, and so it's quite a bit of a risk for Burnley to be spending quite a lot of money on him. But I think he has the talent, and he's still relatively young. It's just if he can stay fit and get a run of games, then I feel like he might be an asset to us, because we have struggled up front for the last few seasons. But we've done business differently to yourselves and Leeds, I feel. What you two have done is similar to what we did last time. Bought a lot of mainly unknowns from Europe. Well, not necessarily unknowns, but untested in the Premier League in Europe. And it didn't work out for us at all. We had so many players that had bags of talent there, but just didn't really seem to apply themselves too well. Mike Trezor was one of them. Turns out he's actually had quite a bad injury and things like that these days, and had to have an operation. But when he was in the Prem, he didn't last time. He didn't seem too interested. Zeki Amdouna, players like that who just never really got going. There were some gems in there, like Sander Berg, who obviously wasn't an untested. We came from Sheffield United. But yeah, we've done it a bit differently this time. We've gone more for the experience approach with players in there, like the random unknowns. Like we brought Luam Takuna from Lazio, obviously, but then we've also got Humphreys as well. He's played for Chelsea and has been with us for last season. And obviously the two lads from Chelsea that I mentioned who have played in the Prem. We've got Hartman, who's coming from Feyenoord. And one of the main things as well that really screwed us over last time is we got promoted with the likes of Nathan Teller, who won the Bundesliga one season after that. And what's he called now? Having a brain fart here. He ended up going to Dortmund. Ian Martson from Chelsea. We had brilliant players in the Championship, and then they were all on loan, and we didn't have obligations, so they all left. So what we've done, again, similar this time, but you could argue these players aren't as good. Well, there's no arguing about it; they're not as good as the likes of Jadon Antonet. We had an obligation to buy him. Marcus Edwards, I do think he's very, very good, by the way. And Zian Fleming. So them three have all ended up staying because we have obligations. But and obviously we brought in bags of experience in Kyle Walker as well. Let's not forget him. I know some people scoffed at it when we signed him because they say his leg's gone and things like that. But it's looking like what we're going to try and do with him is, instead of having him at fullback or wing back, is play him as part of the back five. And he played really well from what I've been told against Lazio. We did lose the game. But he was pinging balls 50 yards and doing some really good things at the back. So we're going to see. It's going to be interesting. I think a lot of people keep saying things like, "Oh, his legs have gone. He was awful when he last played for England," and I can't remember who the game was, but I do remember thinking that at the time. But I think he was at fullback in that game, and he did look like his legs had gone. To be fair, but that was his main asset, wasn't it? His pace. So if we're going to play him somewhere different rather than playing him at wing back and him getting exposed through the lack of pace, then it might be a good bit of business. But yeah, like I said, we've done things a little bit different to you two, and I think that's because we tried to do it your way the last time and it didn't work for us. So we've gone away, licked our wounds, and tried to do it a little bit different.
Chris, when it comes to the rest of the window, I mean, there's probably a fortnight or so left. Are you expecting Leeds to do a great deal more in the transfer window in terms of bringing players in? We'll talk about departures in a bit, but in terms of just purely bringing players in, are you expecting much more movement?
I think we'll see, hopefully, a number 10/winger come in that could be the marquee signing of the window. There's been sort of not quite concrete names, but players linked. But then, you get a player linked, and the next thing, Newcastle are interested, and this team are interested, and that team are interested. And, it doesn't really work out. But I would like, and I expect to see someone there, probably some cover at fullback. And then the most interesting thing will be if Calvert-Lewin comes in, do they still go for another striker? You would expect that with Joe Peru still there, with Calvert-Lewin and Lucas Mecha, there's 3 players for one position already. So I don't know. That's the most interesting, probably the most interesting incoming still to come. I can't really see anyone leaving that's a first team player right now.
Right. What about for Burnley then, Joe? Are you expecting much more money to be spent? Like I said, you've spent an awful lot of money, and obviously recouped some as well. We can't ignore the fact that, particularly with James Trafford, you've got quite a chunky fee from there, which you can plough back into the squad, can't you? So are you expecting much more?
I'd be surprised, if I'm honest. I'd be surprised. Maybe some loans. I think we've got quite a few loan slots available at the minute. But because of the amount of money we've spent, I would be surprised if we brought some more in. But I think the loan window's got a little bit longer left as well. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'd be surprised. I think that the 2 Chelsea lads were the marquees, if you will. And then now maybe we're looking at loans.
So, with having said that, do you think you've got a good enough squad to go in the Premier League? Do you think it's up to scratch?
Like I said, I am worried about the lack of depth in there. The point I was going to make about Maxime Esteve, but I get sidetracked to do it all the time. Is one injury to him, and I think we are up that creek without a paddle. If he gets a long-term injury, I think we are pretty much screwed. So I would like to see us bring some more players in. Like loans can work very, very well. Like I've mentioned Nathan Taylor and Ian Matson the year we went up. Obviously, the only downside to them 2 was we didn't keep them, but they were fantastic for us. And without them in the Championship season, we don't go on to win the league as comfortably as we did, and we don't win the league the way we did. So I would like to see some more come in. Yeah, I think at the minute I do worry about the lack of depth, like I said, and we don't seem that stacked at centre mid as well. Yes, we've got Cullen. Yes, we've got the new Chelsea lad, the Leslie lad, who does look like an engine, by the way. and let's not forget Hannibal as well. I'm not sure Hannibal in the Prem. I like Hannibal. I think he might be more suited to the Prem than the Championship, but he's obviously, I'm going to say he's got a bit of a hothead, and he's known for being a bit of a wind-up merchant, but he's only had that 1 red card in his career, which did come last year, to be fair. So it'll be interesting to see. But I would like to see maybe I'm going to say like a Sander Berg type, because obviously he played for us the last time we were in the Prem, but I think Leslie might be that type, but some more depth, especially in the middle. And at centre-back, I think.
I think my listeners will be glad there's somebody on here who's worse with names than I am, because I'm quite famous for not being able to pronounce anything.
They call me Joe the Butcher, because I butcher every single name that I've even tried. Probably pronounced Smith wrong once as well.
How about with them with Leeds, Chris? Are you happy with the squad you've got? Do you think it's up to scratch to be able to compete?
I think we're an attacker, whether that's a number 10 or winger or a striker. We're one of those away from me being quite confident that we'll stay up.
Right.
I think the back end of the pitch is pretty good looking at the minute. Signed a couple of good centre backs. I signed a good centre back, left back. I'm quite happy with Joe Rodon. and Bogle at right back. I think we look quite good in midfield. It's just that front end of the pitch that's, if you don't have a goal scorer, you tend to go down. Joe Pero looks like he could score goals, but he can't really do the rest of the hard work. He's a little bit of a luxury as a striker in that sense. He's not your typical modern centre forward who can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So if we get one of those, I don't see any reason why we can't stay up. Still have my doubts in some senses about the coach. I don't think it's unfair to say that the three teams that have come up, I wouldn't be surprised if all three of them end the season with a different person in charge, especially given if things go wrong or any of them start slowly. I don't think they'll be given much time to turn things around.
I was going to ask you about that actually, because there was all those rumours, wasn't there, when the season ended that Falk was going to be replaced, and then I've always found that really strange because I don't know whether it was, it might just be in the media kind of making more of it than what it was. I don't know. But what a weird way to end the season, you know what I mean? Like, what a weird way to go into a new season with the manager knowing potentially the club were looking at replacing him. I just found that very strange.
It's strange in England, but it does happen elsewhere. As I said, I watch quite a bit of Italian football, and two of the three teams that have come up in the Serie A are starting with different managers this year. One of them was sacked. Another one was he went back down to Serie B because he sort of thinks he's more of a chance of getting a team promoted than keeping a team up. I think it would have been unfair to sack the manager after winning the league, but I can see where they're coming from to a certain extent. The only issue is who would they have replaced them with? The one thing I always wondered was, say, Ange Postecoglou got sacked in April instead of after winning the Europa League. Would Leeds have maybe gone for him then? I think quite a lot of people would have been keen on him, but I don't know. There's not. I feel like we're sort of past the days of survival specialists in the Premier League because so many teams have gone down in the last couple of years. Other than like David Moyes, is there anyone you'd really say is somebody you bring in for 12 months to make sure that your team stays up?
Yeah, don't talk to Sunderland fans about David Moyes keeping your team up because he got us relegated. Joel, since we're on about managers, Scott Parker's had 3 teams promoted from the Championship, and with his other 2 clubs, they got rid of him pretty quickly. Is that something that Burnley fans even talk about? Consider that he's got this record of getting teams up but not quite having it in his locker to keep a team in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's something that's been mentioned, especially last time, obviously losing 9-0. I don't ever want to go on a football match and see Burnley lose 9-0. So if that's something we're going to have to go through, then yeah, that's a conversation that we're going to have. I think the majority of Burnley fans, obviously at the minute, have got enough or give Parker enough credit in the bank with how we got us promoted last season. I think there was an incredible stat in like February or March last year that in Scott Parker's last 18 games, in Scott Parker's last certain amount of games as a manager, with his teams had conceded 18 goals. 9 of them was that 9-0 at Anfield. So I think he's learned his lesson, and I'm hoping that he's learned his lesson in the Premier League as well. Like, I feel like that's why we were so defensive-minded last season, because that 9-0 and the way that he'd been sacked by Bournemouth and Fulham and the way that the Premier League season that you mentioned have gone, he's then resorted to a new style. So we'll see how that transpires to the Premier League and stuff. Transpires into the Premier League. But yeah, it's something that I am a little bit wary of. And yeah, it's a similar thing. I know you mentioned it already. It's the same thing with all 3 managers. Obviously, Enzo Lefebvre is a little bit different. But obviously, Farker and Parker have both had these positions and either been sacked or been relegated. So yeah, it's one of them things that I am a little bit wary of. But again, is there any point in sacking him in like September? Because it depends who's available and who do you bring him in. Like, do we go looking at Dyche again? Obviously, club legend and stuff like that. But as Chris said, is he really a survival specialist? All right, he kept Everton up. I think most Burnley fans would absolutely love Dyche back, to be fair. But I would suspect that he'll have another job by then. So it's interesting. It obviously depends how we all start, doesn't it? 4-3 teams at rock bottom, 0 points or like 3 points between us in the middle of October, then yeah, probably all 3 might get sacked pretty early.
Well, that's it. I'm just looking at Leeds' start here, Chris, and you've got Everton on the opening weekend on the Monday night. Arsenal away, Newcastle, Fulham away, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, Tottenham. I mean, you've got quite a tough start looking at that. You've got a mix of games there, but some really tough games. Would you rather get them out the way early, or are you happy with the kind of the way the fixtures have landed?
I think it's fine, to be honest. No matter what way you start the season, unless you have like the two promoted teams in the first couple of games and then Everton and Brentford, it's going to be a tough start because there's no such thing as an easy fixture, and the quality across the Premier League is just so tough. But I think this year, if all three promoted teams go down, then just forget about it and have a closed shop, because there'll just be like, you can't have that 3 years in a row.
Especially when you see the amount of money we've spent, you're like, I think that's one thing Sunderland fans are saying now. We're looking at the money, and we're not finished, by the way. We're expecting probably another 3 or 4 signings for money, and you're kind of looking at it and going, if Sunderland can't stay up, just take my team for example, having brought in Granit Xhaka, having brought in a lot of top European experience and spent a lot of money on like players who a lot of the top teams have been courting. If you can't give it a good go, having spent a lot of money like we have, then it's like, friggin' hell, you might as well just knock it on the head. Like, nobody's got a chance coming up from the Championship.
Yeah, I'm quite confident that Leeds will stay up. I just think we need to get somebody else to either score or create the chances for other people to score. If that happens, I think we'll be fine. One of the things that I think has really helped this year is you look at Brentford losing quite a few key players, and the quote unquote bigger clubs are picking up some players towards the bottom end of the league. So I think the level has possibly slightly come down that the three teams have to aim for, but look, it'll be very, very tough. It depends on how we start. I'm quite confident about Monday night against Everton at home, who, I don't think they'll go down, but I think they're definitely beatable. Arsenal away is obviously tough, but then Newcastle at home, you never know. Like, if you start well, if you beat Everton and come into that in a good place, there's no reason, like, with the physical approach that Leeds are trying to go for this year and some of the players that we signed, there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to put it up to pretty much anyone in the sort of, with the exception of like Liverpool and Man City and Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned a tough start there. Nobody's got a tougher start in the Premier League than Burnley, I don't think. Tottenham, then playing Sunderland, Man United, Liverpool, Forest, Man City, Villa. That is scary, to be honest, Joe. I mean, how you've had plenty of time to digest that, though. The fixtures came out a while ago now. So what's the kind of attitude? Is it just like, fuck it, so what? Like,
it has to be now, doesn't it? It has to be now. But at the time, I just remember thinking, like, Jesus Christ. I remember when we got relegated the first time under Daesh. Well, obviously Daesh was sacked on Easter Monday. But the reason why we went down is because we had such a difficult start. And I don't necessarily mean that in terms of fixtures. I mean that in terms of results. I can't remember exactly who we played. But we're just always playing catch-up. And then the pressure's always on you. When the pressure's always on you, you're more prone to mistakes. So you had the likes of James Tarkowski and Ben Mee and Nick Pope, who were, stalwarts in our team, making just uncharacteristic mistakes because of the pressure that was on them. So it's going to be a similar thing now. And I do look at that fixture list and obviously go back to the point you were making about Scott Parker. I mean, my only saving grace with the Tottenham game is obviously they're playing, is it tonight in the Super Cups? And that's over in Italy. So fingers crossed they'll be a little bit jaded from that. Obviously Sunderland, I don't know how Sunderland are going to look. You might look amazing with some of the players that you signed. You might take a while to gel. Who knows? Man United away. Relegation battle that these days. Obviously then right off the Liverpool game, Forest. The thing with Forest is, and this is kind of like my, not hot take if you will this season, but same with Palace, like with them two being in Europe, I think they're going to both struggle quite a bit. They're going to be not necessarily going down. One of them might get dragged into it and just about stay up. Especially Palace if they're losing some of their bigger players as well. Obviously there's some rumours yesterday.
There's always one team that struggles that you don't expect.
That's what I mean. And that year we qualified for Europe, the season after, we were woeful because we were playing, and then we didn't even actually qualify for it. We were always playing catch up again that season because we were playing Sunday, Thursday, and then we got off to an awful start in the Prem. Thankfully, in the end, we managed to pull away. But I think Palace and Forest will struggle, and that'll be quite early on in the season as well when they're still getting used to it. So you never know. But then again, write City off. You could probably write Villa off, and then it's Leeds. So we've got Leeds at home and Wolves away. So again, 2 games there where you're looking at it thinking, yeah, they're still tough fixtures, but it's better than playing Man City. So yeah, that is a very, very, very difficult start to the fixture list. And I remember seeing all the stats because Opta do the fixture difficulty stat thing, don't they? And they were saying it is the most difficult start of the Premier League this season. But at least we're getting some of them out of the way. But yeah, my worry is that we're playing catch up and Parker could have already been sacked by then. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, you mentioned that Opta thing, and Sunderland came out on top on that in terms of fixture easiness. So we had the best start. We had the best start according to them of any, because we've got West Ham at home, Burnley away, Brentford at home, Palace away as our first 4, and then Villa, Forest, Man United, Wolves. So yeah, by all accounts, we've got the best start. But I think it's just to go back to something you said, Chris. Every team in the Premier League has got quality in it. Like, you know, you're talking about West Ham on the opening day. We're actually pretty confident because, you know, that promotion momentum, we've sold every ticket, brand new squad, everyone's like raring to go. And quite often promoted teams do a lot better in the opening couple of weekends than they probably do in November, December time when the, sort of that excitement's died down. But you look at West Ham's squad and you go like, they've got Paquetá in midfield, Jared Bowen, like unbelievable players, and yet we're sitting here going they'll probably struggle. And you look at Wolves and they've got like Gomez in midfield, and you know, you go right through the squad and the money they've spent, but you probably are expecting Wolves to struggle. Brentford, another team who've lost so much. I mean, they're the one for me. I think we're all sitting here hoping that basically the 2 other clubs sitting on this call right now, plus Brentford, have a stinker and we still. We're all thinking the same thing, surely. I mean, Brentford, when you look at it, Chris, if I was a Brentford fan, I'd be pretty scared, me. And I've actually seen quite a lot of Brentford fans trying to be optimistic, and I just think if that was me, we'd lost our manager, captain, goalkeeper, striker, another striker's about to leave, and it's like, how do you replace all of that? Like, I think, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I just think we're all looking at this and hoping Brentford have a stinker this year.
Yeah, I think they're the one team that everyone's targeting, but I'll say this, the last time Leeds got relegated, I remember they started the season and they beat Wolves on the opening day, they drew with Southampton and beat Chelsea, and everybody thought that was it. Like, wow, that's an amazing start. Wolves weren't great, Southampton got relegated, and Chelsea had Graham Potter, they finished, 10th that year? So, in hindsight, those results were kind of just a bit meh, all in all. Yeah. The big thing for me is, I think this season, just try not to fear anyone. I know whenever Leeds got promoted, Paul Reaney, who's possibly their greatest ever right back, he's 80 now, so he played in the Don Revie team. He was speaking at the end of season awards, and he said basically there's a lot of shout out there, fear no one. So it's gonna have to be the way the teams have to approach it, because like, if you buy into the Sky Sports born Premier League hype that it's the best league in the world and all these teams are amazing and this, that, like, everyone can beat everyone on their day, but everybody now looks at the 3 promoted sides and think they have to sort of cower and fear, and you know, they'll be lucky to scrape 30 points. I just think, like, I'm quite confident in the Leeds are going to approach it in quite a physical, you know, we signed a bunch of big boys, let's just get stuck into them and try and score a few goals from set pieces. I'm all for it. I think whenever Leeds came up the last time with Bielsa, we did that, but in a different way, by just playing this completely manic, relentless football and caught everyone by surprise. So just got to go for it and see where we end up.
Yeah, do you kind of subscribe to that too, Joe? That, you know, everyone's looking at the record of the 6 teams, and of course, you know, Burnley are one of those teams. Yeah. 6 teams to have gone down who went straight, come up and went straight back down. That's all everybody talks about. And I'm a really positive Sunderland fan, so I look at that and I go, well, what's that got to do with Sunderland? You know, if they had a bad transfer window, if they made some mistakes, if they maybe sacked the manager too early, you know, that's really got nothing to do with my team. My team start afresh. I don't know how you think about it, because you've actually seen your team relegated in the last 2 years, so you know it's slightly different.
I still have PTSD from that Premier League season. It was awful. Like, we were so good in the Championship, but like I said, that there are anomalies to it. Like, Sheffield United came up and they sold their three best players. We came up and immediately lost Nathan Taylor and Ian Martson. The other team that came up were Luton. To be fair, they gave it a good fight that year, but ultimately, fell away. So, yeah, for me, like I said, it's tough. I think because we came up as one of the best teams the Championship has ever seen under that Vincent Kompany season. To go from that to then being like, wow, we're just literally getting spanked 5-6-0 every single week. I was going on the turf and seeing us lose like 6-1 and things like that and going to away games. I drove all the way down to Brentford. It was 3-0 down at that half time or just after the second half had started. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, do I really want to go through all that again? Like, I'm not looking forward to the season that much because I have quite a lot of, sort of like I said, PTSD surrounding the last season. But having said that, we're doing the approach differently this time. I think the problem was we opened up too easily last time. Like, we just wanted to attack everybody and play this amazing football that Vincent Kompany wanted to do. He was inexperienced. We're doing it differently this time. We're going to, play 5 at the back, I think, and things like that. And we had the brilliant defensive record last season. So, yeah, for me, I am a little bit apprehensive about the season, but I do agree with what you guys are saying. Brentford are the team that I feel like if somebody gets out of it, it'll be Brentford that gets dragged into it, or potentially Wolves as well. Obviously, they've lost some players as well. They've still got some decent players, to be fair, though. So, but it's just the fact that, like you mentioned earlier, every team's got a lot of quality, and you forget that. You hit the nail on the head where you're looking at West Ham at home, thinking good chance of winning that. Then next thing you know, you're 2-0 down because they've got so much quality on the pitch. That's what we struggled with last time. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's different this time. And I understand what you're saying. It's not an issue to what Sunderland have done as to why Sheffield United got relegated, for example. Like, you shouldn't be put in that bracket. But obviously, the main point is that the gap between the two leagues is just utterly ridiculous. And that is the reason why it's happened 2 years in a row now. And there's a good chance it'll happen for a third. But I do agree with the fact that the lower level of the Prem now isn't as good as it was probably 2 years ago because of the likes of Brentford and Wolves losing players.
Yeah, so Chris, how do you look at us then, Burnley and Sunderland? How do you look at the two teams that we're all going to be competing this season for survival, right? So, we're going to have various points, we're going to come across each other, we're going to be keeping an eye on each other's results and things. How have you viewed as an outsider the way that Burnley and Sunderland have sort of approached the summer and then sort of contrasted that with how Leeds have gone on?
I think, like Joe's talking about PTSD, I have a bit of PTSD looking at Sunderland's window of whenever Leeds had Jesse Marsh in that summer of 2022, and we went out and we spent big and brought in all these players from Red Bull clubs and had played European football, this, that, and it could have worked, but it didn't. That's probably more to do with Jesse Marsh and the people who were running the club at the time. But I think looking at Sunderland, I wouldn't be surprised if Sunderland finished like 13th, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't work and they end up getting relegated. Yeah. Burnley, I quite like. It was very frustrating to play Burnley twice last season and have them sit deep and just have James Trafford was brilliant last year, and the sort of defensive style that Parker employed, I think that could translate quite well to the Premier League. I'm just not convinced with the work that they've done this summer. In terms of replacing the players that they've lost. I think Leeds are the only team to have not really lost a player other than Manor Solomon, who was only on loan, so it'd be kind of like, we knew he was going to leave anyway, more than likely. Whereas Burnley have lost James Trafford, who's, I think statistically was by far the best keeper in the Championship last year. But, it's just, I can see Leeds staying up. I can see Sunderland staying up. Burnley could stay up if their style translates quite well, but I feel like they're the least likely to stay up. I think the 3 that have come up this year are much better than the 3 that came up last year. I think if you look at Leicester, came up as a bit of a basket case financially, and like their transfer window was not great. They of course went down. Southampton. So if Southampton had played any other team in that playoff final, they wouldn't have won. It was just Russell Martin had Daniel Farke's number, and Ipswich was it was one step too far, basically, them getting promoted. Whereas I think Leeds and Sunderland look quite healthy, and Burnley stylistically probably have the best sort of transition between the Championship and the Premier League, because they're already playing that solid defensive football, which if it does translate and works in the Premier League, then I think they'll be all right. But otherwise, they're probably finishing last with Leeds and Sunderland not far off.
Same question to you then, Joe. What do you think about sort of Sunderland and Leeds, and how do you contrast that to how Burnley sort of shape up?
Yeah, I've been quite impressed with Leeds' business. I think there's some decent players coming in there. I know you mentioned him earlier, Chris, but the lad from Hoffenheim, Anton Stach, I was very impressed with him. I don't know much about the new goalkeeper, if I'm being honest, but I am impressed with Stach. I know he's a very good goalkeeper. A very good player. I think Longstaff is actually decent. He's going to bring in. Thing is with me, right? I always, because we were so poor last time, because all we tried to do was bring in all these untested Premier League, untested European players into the Premier League. We really missed out on Premier League experience. We needed somebody in there with a bit of grit, a bit of determination, a bit of Premier League experience, and I feel like Longstaff will bring that for Leeds. And obviously, you have players in there that have done it as well, similar to Kyle Walker with us. My worry for Sunderland, though, is obviously Sunderland were 30 points behind Burnley and Leeds last season, so Sunderland had to do a lot of catching up. I worry that, don't get me wrong, some of the players I do look at and think, decent buys, especially Granit Xhaka. That's, again, the Premier League experience that you need. All three of us have done that. But there's a lot of them that are untested, a lot of them that might take a while to gel. So I worry for Sunderland if they start poorly. But you mentioned earlier, then you do seem to have the easiest start in the Prem, according to Opta. So it's going to depend how quickly that Sunderland side gels. Because, again, bringing up the PTSD from earlier, like I said, that's what we did a couple of seasons ago. We brought in all these players, spent a lot of money. I think it were over 100 million quid according to the figures that you see on Transfer Market. Obviously, take them with a pinch of salt, like always. And it didn't work for us. We just didn't gel. We just didn't click. We weren't signing the correct attitudes. We did it all through stats and stuff like that. And like I said, you're getting players in that just didn't really seem too fussed to play for the badge. So that could be something that happens for Sunderland. But again, like you've said earlier, because it happened to Burnley 2 years ago doesn't mean it's going to happen to Sunderland. But when you do things that way, sometimes that can happen. But yeah, it's going to be tough for all three of us, definitely. It's going to be a long season.
Yeah. Come on then, Chris, round us off with your predictions. Bottom five. Let's go from, 16th? I can't even count. 16th down to 20th in the Premier League at the end of the season. If you were going to put money on it, what would you go with? And don't worry about offending me, by the way. And I know where I'm going to be probably in this list.
I'm gonna say that Brentford will finish last. That's my bold prediction. I think Brentford will finish last. I think it'll just go wrong, and they'll hire somebody else, and that'll go wrong too. I think probably Burnley 19th. I do think it's going to be quite close this year, regardless of who goes down. I think there'll only be a couple of points between 20th and 17th. Burnley, and then it's hard to say. Maybe Wolves. I really think Forest are going to get dragged into it. I think they're a one-season wonder, and Europe is going to be probably a little bit too much for them. I can't imagine they'll be up for playing in Kazakhstan on a Thursday night and then having to go to Burnley at the weekend. It's a lot of travelling.
Yeah.
And then maybe Sunderland 17th to keep your listeners happy, and then Leeds 16th.
Same to you, Joe. What do you reckon?
I think at this stage, I think all three of us will go. I genuinely do. I'll say Sunderland 20th. You can all give me grief. I'm not bothered. Feel free to give me grief in the comments. Burnley 19th, Leeds 18th, Brentford 17th, and then probably your Wolves 16th.
Right. Well, we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens when we get towards. I agree with what you said before we came on it, and Joe. We'll listen back to this podcast in May, and then we'll all get back together and have like a bit of a debrief and see.
Like I said, hopefully we're not all crying.
Well, yeah. Good luck for the season, lads. I think it's going to be tough. I think we're all well aware of that, and you probably more so than our fans, because it's been 8 years since we were in the Premier League, and it hasn't half changed. I mean, when Sunderland are going out and spending even 17 million on a goalkeeper, I'm like, what? That would have been our transfer record prior to this summer. So like, I'm just I think the Sunderland fans were just embracing everything, but I think there is some warning to heed from the words you've both said today, and I think listeners will probably take a lot from that, because we're really excited, and we're right to be excited because it's been such a long time, but it ain't going to be easy. And you keep talking about PTSD. You guys have seen how tough the Premier League can be. So yeah, let's hope. Hopefully when we do get back together, hopefully in May, we're all sitting here saying, bloody hell, we all stayed up, just like Bournemouth, Fulham and Forest did, whatever it was, 3-4 years ago. You never know. People are writing us off. You never know. But cheers, Joe. Cheers, Chris. Thank you very much, lads. Appreciate your time.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us on.
In case anyone listening wants to grab some of your perspective from where you are, I guess they can look for Turfcast on the usual pod apps and YouTube and stuff, Joe. Is that right?
Yeah, and all social medias as well.
Yeah, and the Square Ball. I mean, bloody hell, you're massive, the Square Ball. But if anyone needs to look for the Square Ball, they can find you, I guess, everywhere, Chris.
Yeah, YouTube, all the socials as well. Fanzine. But if any Sunderland fans are buying a Leeds United fanzine, I think some questions would need to be asked.
Yeah, that's a bit too far, isn't it? Thanks to the listeners. Cheers for joining us. We've got plenty more coming this week as we build up to that West Ham game. So make sure you catch up with everything that's already on the feeds and what's coming up from How We the Podcast. Well, from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.